That gets into a real design oriented question, and probably a lot
Right.
of, my inclination would be to say less is more, but and using complementary shades instead of different colors would be an inclination I would have. But
Mhm.
somebody else might feel differently and have 10 different primary colors. Well, I mean, there aren't 10 primary colors, but lots of different colors.
Yeah.
Now,
I just
there's a methodology to developing a style guide. So I've done a lot
mhm.
of that in the past with when people are doing a branding makeover or a website. So typically you have 2 to 3 primary colors, and then you can have supplemental colors for things like highlighting things or backgrounds or things like that. And you have to you kind of decide what color theory, what color type you're going to base it on. So you could use all similar colors, you could use complementary. There's several different ways that you can choose colors to make them harmonious with one another. So you could start with something like that. And the same goes to your font selection and font sizes. Kind of deciding that, in advance can be helpful, but sometimes, you have, what is it, project creep. And so you may start out with a limited number of fields and objects, and then you wind up having a layout that has a lot, which was what happened with the original version. Didn't have as many data entry fields. So lots of the data entry fields were like 16 point, which took up too much space. So I reduced everything in terms of the edit box field, the text sizes, as well as the field labels, in order to be able to accommodate more text elements on a screen instead of having to make the screen so much larger, right? So sometimes it's a little hard to plan completely in advance for something that might happen down the road. Yeah, that's, kind of how I've done things in the past in terms of creating a brand style guide.
Mm-hmm.
I had one to show you. I was looking through my portfolio here to see if I had one I could share so you get an idea of the different elements of deciding colors and fonts, but I can't seem to find it. So.
And a tool that I use pretty frequently is Color Hexa. It's just a website with every possible color hex value that is available. But I tend to stick with, showing, right? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at here. And I tend to start with web safe colors just because, web safe colors, like in a web viewer, you want things to load the way they would look on a desktop, and they're compatible between multiple OSs and all that sort of stuff. But it really depends on the project. A lot of times I'll just go to the clients if they have a website, and I'll pull a primary, like at least a few colors off the website, and then start building a list of colors from that. But Color Hexa gives me options to just build because I'm not a designer. I need an actual tool to tell me what I should do. And this has like built-in color scheme, which work really nicely. So you can just, this split complementary color palette will work nicely, and I'll just copy these in and make them my primary colors. That just stuff that saves time, rather than spinning your wheels on what colors to use. I feel like many times in most solutions, customers really don't care that much, but they do care that it makes like it's pleasing to the eye. They just can't communicate what that exactly means to them.
Yeah, there's another one that's like this. It's Coolors. It's Coolors. That's the website. It's basically the same thing, but it's just a generator.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's basically the same thing, but it'll generate it for you. And if you have an idea of what you want to set as primary, then you can generate a whole palette, or just pick from palettes that people are using. This is
Yeah.
Oh,
a good
nice.
starting
Got a
point.
Figma plugin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah, I like it.
Because I saw someone do a demo once where they were changing theme style kind of on the fly based on selected values. And there's a way to do that I think they were using I think the new feature, like import from XML kind of thing. Or no, was it I think it was a plugin where they could replace theme values or something on the fly. Anyways, and
Oh
they
yeah,
would
this
punch
one
in.
has a generator. I mean, I wouldn't be
That's yeah.
surprised
They
if
had like
they're
an
leveraging
API.
it.
You could just be like create a list that the users could choose. And they, apply using this palette or whatever you want to call it.
I'm going through. I'm stepping through the tutorial right now. It's pretty cool.
Cool. From my experience, a lot of customers really don't care.
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
care.
this is like if you have full
Yeah.
control too. Yeah.
That's always funny to me because if I were hiring someone to build software, I would care. Like I would want the colors I wanted. I would have these ideas, and it's funny to me
Yeah.
that a lot of clients are like, "Well, whatever."
Yeah.
I'm fine with gray and white. I'm like, "What?"
Yep.
It's just a difference I've noticed.
Yeah, I get
I
it.
don't want what they call it, angry fruit salad colors, but I do like color.
That's now becoming my default naming convention.
Yep.
If there's like no specific requirement, I tend to like, and there's nothing in place, I usually go to like my default now is the Mizu theme.
Oh, I really like that
yeah.
theme.
Mizu theme's
Yeah.
cool.
And we can dive into that sometime too. It's worth checking out because I like how they they group certain objects together in a way that makes the layout more broken up but still usable from a depth perspective. There are some things about it that I typically don't use as much, but I like their thought process. So the Proof Mizu theme, it's a free download, and it's similar to our theme, except they put a lot more thought into theirs. They go into grid spacing and how very, very specific use case scenarios for different fields, which is really handy. And the fact that you can import this theme into any solution, but there are certain downfalls with that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's just so well thought out, and they use a lot of Markdown naming conventions. So if you're familiar with Markdown, it makes it a little bit easier to see how things are named.
Yeah, so like Jillian was showing, they take that same approach. It's the HTML syntax kind of outlining.
Yep. I don't know if that's all I really had. I mean, we could dive into this, but like I said, it's kind of something that everybody should check out if they have some time. See how they see the thought process that went into their into developing this demo. It's pretty neat. This layout and grid one is pretty interesting, like how they apply the grids and then set up all their default grid lines and all that sort of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I really should spend more time doing that.
Yeah, it creates the nice pockets of white space,
Uh-huh.
and like create separation.
Which is one complaint of FileMaker, that it always looks so outdated. And so it'd be great to make things look a little more crisp and modern. And
yeah,
I had one client ask if any of the FileMaker updates involved updating the look of it. I said, no, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can do that for you, but it's not just a default update.
Yep. Oh yeah, icons are a whole nother conversation, but basically, we have actually, Brandon, do you know if we still have that license for
flat icon?
Flat icon.
No, you can get a certain amount for free, but we could, again, it's not very expensive, so we could add it in there.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's so easy to find icon packages these days.
Jacob, do you have if you could show the icons you've got going for them, because it looks really nice.
Oh yeah, in the web app.
Yeah.
Well, this would be their web app. So we're actually leveraging, in this case, Font Awesome is the library that's supported by Better Forms, which is probably similar to, a bunch of other icon apps. But it just makes things a lot nicer. And you have like a bunch of supported icons. Makes the design look a little bit cleaner.
Yeah.
And is this the Better Forms? So how do you define your icons? Are they all in JSON objects, or like the paths to the icons, or do they use the theming library?
So in this case, they've imported into the DOM. They've included a library for Font Awesome, which gives you access to using like Font Awesome themes. Basically, what those look like they're basically HTML elements. So we can look at this, like here you can see it styled as an icon. See, they've declared it, and then they're giving it a class, right? So the class is really all that determines what's being used here. So they're providing them here, and that's being pulled from the actual library. But it makes it nice and simple for us because we just include the icon, and we can put it anywhere on the page.
Anywhere. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, we have to write it in. I mean, in Better Forms, the editor gives you space to like write custom HTML and do certain things. So that's how those get included. And in this case, they just, they wanted a bunch of buttons that take them to specific things in their UI. So.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of design heavy projects. So it is nice to look at one from time to time that is design focused.
Yeah. And this client is very design focused. Like we've had several back and forth. They're like, okay, this font is 2 points too big, or this color's off. This is, this heading doesn't match what it should. And they've been very particular, which has created a really nice end result. But it was eye opening to be like, oh, they actually are paying attention. They actually are aware of what to us is hard to notice if you're just kind of glancing. You have to look really hard sometimes to be like, oh yeah, that is a different font.
Wow.
Been neat.
Yeah, they added a bunch of things, and there's like all kinds of features happening in this particular web app. But it's been fun.
Cool. Well, good discussion. Design isn't something we talk about a lot. So anytime anybody wants to bring it up, have at it. It's kind of one of those like a standards conversation. I do like discussing standards because I don't think it's talked about enough.
I feel like sometimes we don't really have like as much control over it. I mean, at least in some of the ones that I've worked in client solutions, there's always kind of like an established theme or approach that's being used, and you kind of just stick with what exists. I don't really know where like the boundary is when like letting the client know we can improve this look greatly. I don't know what approaches that we take when considering that for clients.
Right. And that's, I think, Jillian, with your history in like marketing and stuff, do you feel like selling clients on a design oriented, like a cohesive design is beneficial for both the client and the users? Or I guess they are often the one and the same, client and users. Just worth selling it on?
I think it could be a selling point, particularly if the client is adding a whole bunch of new features that maybe new layouts or things had to be added. I think it's hard to replicate some of that classic look, those classic look templates that are in a lot of legacy solutions that quite frankly are just horrific. But the other thing, we also have more modern ways of thinking about design. A big thing is that there's some focus on like accessibility. And as people get older, they prefer to have things be larger on a screen. So kind of applying more modern design concepts can be beneficial. Whether a client would want to invest in that, I don't know. But sometimes you don't know what you'd like because it hasn't been shown to you.
Right.
Right. So if you're used to working in a system and that the green, orange, and yellow buttons that are on the left-hand side are just, a big reminder of specific actions that you take. And then in our mind, that's really garish and we don't want these big red, green, and blue buttons or whatever. The client might not be open to that. So it kind of really depends on how flexible they are and who the users within their organization are. But it's certainly a conversation to have.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd say to everyone and to feel free to ask if you're working with a client and something comes up where you have a sense that maybe they want to expand this area or maybe they want to add something new. It's just to ask and say, hey, do you have anything that's been bothering you that we could work on? We've done that a couple of times and they've come back with, yeah, I actually do. And let's do these two things. And it's just been small so far. But I think if we all are more in the habit of asking, we'll find those openings to keep the customer the customer.
Totally.
So they say it's always easier to get work from your current people than getting new people necessarily, but
some situations like I'm looking at, and they have all these chunky buttons across the top of their layouts for menus, and it's so cluttered already. So when they ask for a new feature that obviously is going to require a new menu button, it's like, well, how do you make that fit? Like it doesn't, it becomes a problematic to help a client expand a feature set when the design itself is holding back, or you have to use a different method in order to give them access to that. So yeah, I don't know when the best time to broach something like that is. I think a lot of clients probably come to us with a business specific problem or a feature that they need. And they're not necessarily thinking about, well, the design of our layout is bad,
Yeah. For me, it's always more about experience rather than the actual design, which oftentimes they're often tied together, but making sure the user design experience is cohesive across the solution versus like getting the colors right. One department doesn't often discuss their workflow with another department, and so you need to make sure there's the solution that's handling that conversation before them to make it easier rather than being confusing between two different access points.